Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Summer is here, which means we all want to look and feel our best. A GLP-1 may be right for you. Visit orderlymeds.com to learn more about which GLP-1 you could be eligible for. Getting started is fast, easy, and happens virtually through telemedicine from licensed professionals. Check it out for yourself. Go to orderlymeds.com/podcast. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Taking care of yourself feels great. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
Emotionally Unavailable.
Okay, welcome back, Dr. Heather Taylor to Emotionally Unavailable. It's so good to see you. I'm so excited that you signed up. Obviously, my world has been immersed in grief for almost 7 months, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting, and you were someone I kind of wanted to talk to almost immediately for obvious reasons. But it's wild actually, because I felt very knowledgeable about grief before. You know what I mean? Like, I have experienced so much loss. This obviously is a very different experience, but the thing that I've been really passionate about talking about, because one thing that I really learned for the first time, now that I'm like doing grief in a different way, that's really been part of why it's so different too, is I had grown and healed so much 2 years prior to this loss. Otherwise, I know that I wouldn't have survived it. But I gained a lot of really good tools the last couple of years. So that's, one really important piece for me. But because of that, I've been very present and mindful and curious about my responses to others. And so it's been a very different experience, but it made me realize it really kind of, along with the physical processes and whatever, it really highlighted what was already there that I didn't even necessarily know. And so one thing that I really had kind of discovered in the year prior really was how I was still placing barriers between me and other people to feel safe, because my deep-seated fear is that they'll die. I mean, truly, like, my dad dying at 15 fucked me up in that way, to where it was like, I can't get close to people because then they'll die and I will die. In essence, is what I thought. I will die. So it really started with my husband. I really noticed, like, wow, I see now where I'm like still protecting myself. And I really do believe, even though I walked into losing my dad with 15 years of trauma prior, that destroyed, I'll say, an already very shaky foundation. So I started to realize the parallels between losing him when I was 15 and then losing Jake 30 years later, almost in the same manner. But it really all boiled down to the way I isolated myself then, based off other people's response to my grief. And that's been the number one thing. And I kind of wanted to dig into that with you today, because I feel very like both sides of the pole on this, where yes, we don't want you saying the dumb shit that you say to us when we're hurting. And there's space for love and compassion and understanding for the person saying the dumb shit also. And I think that's been the big shift for me. Mostly, I just had this feeling like over and over, like, Jake died right before Christmas. And I think if that hadn't been the case, the support would have lasted a little bit longer, but we got about 10 days and then it was Christmas. And so everybody the funeral was the 23rd. So obviously, and I am not saying that with any malice. I expected it. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't even hurt by it, but I was lonely. I was
Mm-hmm.
isolated. And so I found myself really responding in that same old manner, being like, people aren't showing up for me, you know, all the things that you can feel when you're grieving. And it felt like such an isolated experience anyway, which a friend of mine really helped me work through. She was like, that's because you're the only mom he had. So, like, nobody else can carry this particular loss with you. And I was like, okay, that actually helped. Thank you. Like, I don't know if she had been talking to Chat GPT before we met up that day or what, but it was exactly what I needed to hear because I just kept feeling so alone, you know? And so
Yeah.
that was perfect. And I was like, perfect. Okay, great. That really, really helped dig me out of some trenches. But I really had to stop and ask myself, like, how much are you telling people what you need though? Like, you do have some responsibility here. You cannot just expect that people know how to show up in such a tragic circumstance. So that's really been the shift that I've made, is personal accountability and responsibility in this
Mm.
grief, is like, I do have to know what I need and ask for it too. At that point, I can make different evaluations if I'm not receiving what I feel like I've asked for. But I guess that's really where I wanted to be today, and I'm wondering kind of what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, let me make sure I'm
Yeah, yeah.
answering the question. So it's that balance of I want people to show up for me and they're not necessarily going to show up perfectly, and what's my responsibility in naming what I need. Is that kind of what we're
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
that little triangulation system. Yeah. I think it's really hard too, because so often I mean, you have experience with loss, you have a history of loss, and you have done work on yourself. So I think there's a different level of awareness versus someone who's maybe going through a traumatic loss the first time
Yeah.
and maybe hasn't done a lot of work, and they definitely don't know what they need because they don't even know how to like get out of bed in the morning.
Oh,
And
so
there
true.
is, and so I think there's a different the gift of loss is like, if you've done it once and you chose to do some work on it, it it helps you know how to navigate it later, because you understand that, like, I'm going to be exhausted, I'm going to be irritable, I'm going to cry a lot, I might be quiet a lot, like my grief isn't going to go away. I'm going to learn to carry it differently through different seasons, and it's probably going to bring up past losses that I've had. And I
Mhm.
know that, having gone through losses. But for someone who's going through a loss the first time, it's very disorienting. Nothing feels like the right thing to say. But someone who's experienced loss, they know there's not a right thing to say. And it's just the person who's going to just keep showing up and checking in and understanding that, like, this is hard and I'm going to be different on the other side. And there's, I think, a different level of understanding and compassion for the people
Yes.
supporting the griever.
Yes.
Um, because especially if we've done some of our own work around that. But I also think some of these bigger losses, each loss is so nuanced. And so it's going to bring up different things. Like, losing
Yes.
my brother in 2009 was a very different, isolating kind of grief experience versus like my heart failure diagnosis in 2021, where now I'm dealing with like daily grief around, like,
Yeah.
when am I going to need a heart transplant? Like, and it's different. Like, I had different expectations and different needs for these
Mhm.
different types of grief. Um, and so I think it's important to have conversations like this. Um, for those of us who are lifelong grievers versus first time grievers, and just that there is a learning curve there, and that's not that you're failing or doing it wrong. It's just that
Right.
there's different insights we learn through the different loss lessons we go through. And so I think, like, someone who's maybe had more experience with grief or loss, they know that, like, okay, I'm going to have my doer friends. Okay, I need someone to walk my dog. They're going to want a job, so I'm going to give them a job. They're going to walk my dog because I just can't even get out of bed. Or they're going to coordinate the meal train. And then I have my, like, chill vibes friend who's going to distract me. We're going to go get coffee. They're going to make me walk at Costco and get samples to make sure I'm eating, subtly. And like, they're going to distract me. And then I've got my listener friend who it's 2 a.m. and I am stuck in a grief spiral, and they're going to just listen and validate and not try to rescue or fix because they understand how to be in the grief, in the ick with me, and they don't have to do something with it. So I think as we go through grief, we understand different friends have different roles. And if we go through another loss, it's like we can pull on that same scaffolding to help us navigate it differently this next round of loss. Because that's the thing with grief, right? We're going to keep having losses
Right.
the longer we live.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
God,
And so
I
I
hate
think
it.
that's why I think grief literacy is so important. Because we're going to keep having these experiences. And if we don't process it, we don't have supports, we're just going to get buried in it ourselves. And then we're
Yeah.
stuck in the ick, in the grief. But we're still in a very grief-phobic, grief-illiterate society. And so this is why conversations like
gosh.
this.
Hey guys, it's me. Emotionally Unavailable is produced 100% in-house by me with no team. So if this show has ever helped you and you want to give back, subscribe to the Patreon. There's several different levels with different benefits in each. Check the show notes and you can see what each tier subscription will get you. There's also lots of fun things coming down the pipeline for the Patreon subscribers. So get in early. You can get a workbook, you can buy merch, you can do any of the things, and all of that supports the show to help it keep going. Really appreciate every single one of you. I love you so much, and I can't wait to see what we continue to do together.
Are important.
It's been so highlighted. This is the thing, is I promised myself I would give the same compassion to others as I would myself, but thank everything. I had a couple of outlets. Because I signed my daughter up for a grief group and my son was interested, I was like, he ain't gonna go without me, so I'll go too. And I didn't think I was a support group person, let me tell you. Like, I will tell you this. I want to highlight this because I think everybody should find a good group. I think there's one out there for you. I think everybody needs a group. I am the person who wasn't a joiner. I hated group situations. Like, I am telling you, if I found such extreme benefit from this, everybody will. I was lucky and found a great group right away, but not because the people weren't annoying a little bit at first, not because whatever. For me, it was great because it was non-faith based and I liked the structure really well. Shout out Calm Waters, but whatever your sitch is, find you a group. But that was an excellent outlet because let me be clear, I didn't process any of the grief in any of my other losses. So this was all very different. I didn't know what I needed either, except for I knew I was experiencing PTSD because of our particular loss and, how that all unfolded. I knew I had PTSD, like immediately. I walked into it with PTSD. I got a huge case of it from there, recognized all the symptoms. Great. Okay. So I know how to tend to that really well. So that was something that was easy for me to be like, oh, I'm having a situation right now. Okay, I know what to do with that. Otherwise, it's all been real trial and error for me too. So I didn't know that with my new understanding of everything, that every single thing actually that anybody said was going to hurt.
Sure.
I remember my skin just feeling ripped off and oh my God. Between the grief group and a gal that I met through podcasting, which someone else said, I think you should talk to her because blah, blah, blah. Kirsten from thisisgrief.nz. She experienced a child loss through suicide. And so she kind of, it felt like you understand tragic loss. Okay, great. She affirmed that raw feeling, and those two places were really good outlets for me to say, Jesus, I know you can't know, but I just wish you'd stop trying to help because it just hurts so bad. Everything hurt. That's what I remember is it didn't matter what anybody said. There was a couple of things that I don't remember. The first time I heard the grief is like glitter thing, that was kind of comforting. The 70th time, it was like, okay, yeah, it's like grief is like glitter at first. Look it up. I don't even remember it because this is something
because
people
it's
like to say.
it's everywhere.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. and
Yeah,
it
the first
sticks
time
and
I
it's
heard it, I was like, "Oh,
inconvenient
that's
and it's
right."
annoying. Oh, I like that. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But then
and then
over
at
time,
the
it's like then
70th
you
time,
see
I
the
was
little
like,
pieces of glitter and it reminds you. And yeah, okay,
"Yes."
I got
And I
you.
was like, "Oh,
All
that
right.
makes sense. Okay, yeah." That and maybe one other thing were, like, actually comforting. Everything else was so painful. And it was like, I just found myself recoiling and just, and wanting to retract from any social situations, but that was the part I pushed through was like, y can we learn how to tell people that we don't want them to say that? I haven't. I'll be honest, like, I'm still not good at being like, "I don't really like that." The only thing I've gotten decent at is when someone makes an assumption, I will correct the assumption. That's the only thing I've gotten good at voicing, but otherwise, I just remember everything really being very painful, like, "Please just stop trying to fix it. It's making it so much worse, please." But again, there was so much I was learning for the first time too, because I didn't even have a single clue about how to address grief back with the other losses. So it's all been very new. But you're so right. And I guess that's what I want to conceptualize is how to meet a person doing this for the first time and be able to hold them, but get them to some place of understanding, like A to Z, without skipping all the steps. Not in the first day you meet them, obviously, but how can you help people get this level of awareness, I guess?
Well, Melissa, I just so happen to have an acronym that I created that I am promoting all over the place that is actually what I think is super helpful. So I'll do a little shout out for my STAY framework. What I so I've been a practicing since 2012. I've been in hospice. I've done group practices, solo practice, and I specialize in grief. That's what I did my research on. That's my whole shtick. Grief is my jam. And thinking about how do we make grief approachable? Because what's like when someone thinks of grief, they instantly like clench up, or they turn and walk. Like I had a booth at a conference once about my podcast, the Grief is the New Normal podcast, and the facial expressions of people walking down my row when they saw the word grief, it was wild. It was like one of three options. They either walked over and said, "Hey, this is so cool. I'm so glad someone's doing this." They made like an ick face and like avoided
Oh,
contact and just kept walking, or they just turn and walk away and avoid altogether. Like it was wild. Or they
yeah.
challenge on the name. Like, do you really think grief is the new norm? I'm like, yes, like grief is a universal experience. Anyways, so I wanted to create like an orienting stance for how we can show up for grief, whether we're at work, whether it's coffee with a friend, um, at church or whatever religious, spiritual place of community, or even in the therapy office. Because as you know, most mental health clinicians, we are not actually trained in how to do grief.
Right.
It's not in our curriculum other than Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of death and dying, which is for someone with a terminal diagnosis and has just been
Right.
applied to those left behind. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. So
Ugh,
my
I've beat
acronym,
that horse, I promise.
I know, same. So so I have a Substack called How We Stay with Grief. So STAY stands for slow down, track the losses, allow complexity, and yield to the moment. And so when we first think about grief or it comes up unexpectedly, whether you're at work or over coffee with a friend, what do? We panic. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We freeze. We're uncomfortable. Do we talk about it? Do we not talk about it? So what do we need to remind ourselves? We need to slow down. Take a fucking deep breath.
Yeah.
I cannot fix or rescue this person from their grief. So I can take that pressure off and I can slow myself down and just be with them in it. Even Deb Dana, she does a lot of research on polyvagal theory. And like, it's like we're in that sympathetic nervous system space of anxiety when grief shows up, when the griever's in that dorsal space most often. And so it's like, how do we match energies? Let's just slow
Yes.
down. Right?
Yes.
And that feels so much better as we're taking the pressure off, we're taking a breath, and we're just going to slow down. We don't need to fix anything in this moment, but we can be present. track the losses. So often people think like the one loss or the primary loss event is the only grief happening here. And instead, let's look on tracking the losses. Okay, how did this impact their identity? How is this impacting their physical health, their relationships, their beliefs? You're looking at all the different layers of loss that they're going through, and the secondary losses, the ripples from that.
Mhm.
So, and you can name some of that. Like maybe it's you were caregiving for someone for a number of years, and your role as a caregiver, and you're missing them, but you've also been missing them for years. Like you're talking through the different layers of loss. And then we have allow complexity. This is that both and that, like, I think a lot of mental health clinicians are pretty good at the both and, holding the duality, the complexity of things. Like we can be utterly devastated and grieving and sad and looking forward to coffee with whoever
Right.
we're meeting with, or like grateful to be at work and distracting ourselves. But it's both things existing in one body at the same time. And I think people still really struggle with that concept of duality and the both
Yes.
and that. And I think that fits in with the dual processing model for bereavement, where we're oscillating between grief work and restorative work. And so we're holding space for both and then yielding to the moment. I mean, we think about work meetings or coffee dates or even therapy sessions. We always have an agenda. There is usually a plan when we're getting together with someone. And grief, she be inconvenient. She shows up when she needs to be seen and witnessed. And so does it cost us anything to spend 5 to 15 minutes yielding to that grief taking up space? No, it doesn't cost us
Yeah.
anything. And we can still pivot back to the agenda, but grief needs to be witnessed and seen. And so I think if we orient towards letting grief take up more space, that allows for more grief literacy, connection, and feeling less alone in our grief. Because we're feeling it all the time. It doesn't go away. It just gets different. And there's new things coming into our beings all the time that are activating different grief responses or life responses. And so yielding to when it shows up in the moment, I think, can help it feel less big.
Yeah, you know what's been interesting is I've been spending more time with one of my friends that the summertime is when we have more time for each other. And I I feel like conversations about Jake in our house have really slowed. I
Mm.
I don't know. It just feels a little different. And I felt like the last few times I've seen this friend, I've had so much to say about Jake or something happening or whatever, to where, like, when I was leaving, I was like, "Did I talk about that too much?" And, like, then I stopped because I'm like, "Okay, you just feel that." But I was asking myself, like, why did that come up so much more than normal? And I'm like, I just kind of always go, "You must have needed to talk about it." Like, that's the thing that I'm always
Yeah.
defaulting back to, because my natural instinct is to hide and not share and whatever. But I have noticed with this one friend, I've just been talking about it so much, and I'm like afterwards just questioning it, like, that's so weird, because I don't feel like I talk about it to that length every day anymore. But I also, the whole, like, I was so confused at first because I kept waiting to feel different. That was the thing. Like, I was judging myself a little bit at first because I was like, what, like, I don't feel like this totally different person or whatever, the way I did with other losses. And I'm sure I was just getting wrapped up in something so that I could avoid feeling for a second. But so I decided, like, you're allowed to feel however you want. But then as time went on, I was like, oh, what's changed significantly is my capacity.
Mm.
All the way around. Like, and if I had not already left a job, been, self-employed, all that, I would be a totally different person, because I would be a basket case out trying to, like, hit a regular schedule, like any of that stuff. Because everybody was so generous with the GoFundMe, I was able to take like 3 weeks off, things like that. And so I really had time to just like chill and get to an okay place before I went back to work. That's not a luxury that everybody has, to go back into a schedule that they create based off their capacity. That's something I still notice almost 7 months later is nothing has changed backwards for my capacity. I still have very little like tolerance levels. I noticed my capacity to be with other people and their experiences has really
Mm.
shifted because I'll be like, did I feel so ashamed to say this, but I'm like, did I really feel like the best person to come to for support with that sometimes? And then that's when I stop and I go, "Oh, this is a signal that you don't have the capacity." Like that's okay that you just had this very human thought, but what it means is you don't have the capacity and you need to just step back. Like that in some way communicate, I don't have the capacity for this. Like however that needs to happen or I don't respond to messages the way I used to. I'm a Gemini, so I was constantly texting back and forth whatever, like just constant. If somebody sends a message that's really long, I will ignore it for a while because my brain doesn't take in information the same way. So I was like, okay, things have definitely changed because I don't think the same, communicate the same, but I just didn't feel so different like I had with other losses where I felt like a foreigner in my body.
No, that totally makes sense. And I think that's uh, each loss is its own unique experience and has a
Yes.
different level of impact depending on where we're at, our relationship with who died. Like it's all good. There's so much nuance here, which is I think why I struggle so much with the like complicated, prolonged grief diagnosis, because you only diagnose it after a year, and most people are just still figuring out like baseline, like how do I
Right.
breathe post loss, and that just feels like a normal response to grief, not something to be pathologized. Yeah. So I mean, what you're saying makes sense. Like the capacity is lower. I mean, especially you lost your son. Like that's
Yeah.
devastating. That's devastating. And I'm so glad you found a support group that fits. I've worked with a number of parents who have found a lot of connection specifically around other parents who've lost a child because I think there is so much nuance there, and it helps them feel less alone in it. So I'm glad you found a great group connection, and also like understanding, yeah, my capacity is going to be shit for a while. Like this changed me in so many unexpected ways. I am more irritable. I can't hold the space in the same way, and that's
Hmm.
not that I'm failing. It's my body, my brain is like, have you read The Grieving Brain? My brain is
No.
literally, oh girl, my brain is literally trying to rewire itself around this loss. Like when we're with someone for 10 minutes, it creates these mirror neurons in our brain, and they only light up when we're with that person. So think about losing a child. They were literally in your body. They
Right.
left their imprint in your brain. You've been with them their whole life. And then now those parts of your brain can't light up in the same way. Of course, it's disorienting and disorganizing and exhausting. Like your brain is literally trying to make sense of something that is no longer physically here.
Right. Well, that's been the really strange part. I had to learn very early on, however my nervous system responds is how it responds, and I'm not going to freak out and question if I'm doing something wrong or whatever, but I feel such a disconnect. I've seen one other person word it this way, and I was like, "Oh, I feel so seen." I've not heard anybody else describe it like this. But, the really common response is for people to what like say like I haven't accepted that they're gone or it still doesn't seem real that they're gone. I'm in this other space where it's
Mm,
almost harder to believe he ever existed. Like it's
mm,
really strange and I don't know. That's the best way to describe it is like he only existed in some alternate reality. That's what my brain
mm,
has done with this. And I saw someone else say it and it made me feel less crazy. So I was like, okay, thank you. Cause like I call it a disconnect or numbness, but it's so much more than numbness because unless like I really appreciate my hormonal shifts around periods because that's when I can really feel Like, otherwise, I really don't a lot of times.
Ugh.
I mean, there's been a couple times already during this conversation that would have been easy to cry, but, like, most of the time, there is this disconnection that I I'm just assuming it's my nervous system. This is the way it's organized itself to survive this because it's the worst thing that can possibly happen. So I had to stop judging it because I
Yeah.
I was afraid I was in denial and was like, "Oh, are you," and I'm like, "I can't help that this is what it's doing." Like I literally can't because I'm doing everything I can to be present with all of it. And if this is the way that my nervous system has decided this is what we'll do to survive,
Yeah,
but
it sounds very protective. Like you're
yes,
I mean that's the word that keeps popping in my head is maybe a little dissociative and a lot protective because the pain is too intense to just camp in, to
all
just
the
sit
time.
in.
Exactly.
It's constant. It's like I can't exist in that space. I won't function. So this is a way your brain and body are organizing themselves to keep showing up and living and doing what you need to do. No, that makes total
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
It's been interesting, but I don't like to talk about it a lot because I don't know. I feel like it makes me sound crazy, but also I feel like it's important that, like, if I felt so seen for one other person to put it that way, then, like, I have to be honest about my experiences so that people know, like, there's all kinds of ways that your
Yeah.
brain and nervous system are going to respond to something. And it was like, there was, like, 6 weeks at the beginning where there was just, like, the crazy crying all the time and stuff, and then there was just a switch, and it, like, was happening less frequently, and then now, again, only during my period am I really, like, that in it, but that's fine. I mean, I have to survive too, like, and it's also, like, I'm watching 2 of my other children experience very unique losses, and even though it's, like, I have to take care of myself, I also do feel a great duty in caring for them, you know? So it's like I'm carrying their grief too. So my brain just said, "You know what? This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do it like this. This is how we're gonna do that." But okay, I did want to say this. I'm gonna ask you for a little personal advice here because this is something that I've really struggled with. The support group I went to, I actually went with my son. I chose not to do the parent one because he wasn't going to go without
Okay.
me. And
Yeah.
so I did this one. Um, and I was glad because so immediately after I went public with what it was that killed him, I was approached by all of these parents. And like there's
Mm.
these specific support groups of parents whose kids have died, like from fentanyl. That's not what killed Jake, but whatever. Okay, they're very angry, and I am not. And so that
Yeah.
is something that I have really like, eek, like it scared the shit out of me to be around super angry people. And that's what I'm finding in the child loss space in general. And
Mm.
I will be very honest because that's who I am. There was a small moment where I was feeling kind of judgy about it, and then I was like, "Well, why are you judging?" I realized that it's because of my own like previous shame about all of my reactivity and whatever. So no judgment. That's their process. But I am terrified of it. Like it it triggers my abuse wound for some reason. Like I feel very
Mm.
contracted and braced anytime someone is anywhere in the peripheral of anger around their grief or even Jake's loss. When anger comes up, I get very afraid, and I am afraid of experiencing the anger. Um what do you think about that? Like, is that normal?
Yeah.
What is that?
I mean, my go-to answer, it depends. I think anger is more comfortable for some people because there's a sense of productivity with it. There's movement in anger. There's something driving us. I mean, think about how anger is characterized, right? Like even just in Inside Out, it's hot, it's warm, there's motion, there's movement. And then you think of sadness and she's like,
She's
the
very
lump on the
droopy.
floor. Yes,
Yeah.
very droopy, very sad, very humdrum, very frozen-ish. And that doesn't maybe feel as good. And so when you're in a lot of pain, what feels more comfortable? Freezing in it or over functioning in it? And so for some people, anger does feel better. Yeah, so I mean I've seen the full gamut of emotional responses. And some people do stay in anger for a long time, especially like if it's a traumatic loss, if they didn't, there's all these different variables that could impact why we would stay in anger longer. And I think it's about how do we, again, it's that oscillation, like how do we hold space for both? And so if you're feeling a resistance to that, that's okay. You get to trust your instincts there. It doesn't mean you're grieving wrong. And again, 70% of therapeutic change is based on the fit. And I think that works for groups as well. If a more angry group isn't a fit for you, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, or it just means that you're processing your grief and need something different. And I think, yeah, I think that's important to remember, is that everyone's loss is unique to them, and the emotional states we cycle through are going to look different. They're going to have different lengths. I mean, just like we were talking about with kind of that protective factor of my brain is organizing itself that he just wasn't here, because that's less painful. It's similar with emotions. We're going to maybe stay in a certain emotional state that feels more protective and comfortable because the pain is too much. Like, our bodies and brains are designed to survive. And so looking at everyone's unique upbringings and relationship experiences, developmental states and stages, like that's all going to influence and impact how grief shows up for us. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but those are
Yeah. Yeah, I think again, like, even though I don't voice most of these things a lot, there is always just a little worry that I'm doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Like, just it comes up. It's like I'm pretty good at, assuaging any of that, but and I think I'm doing better around other people's anger. It is something I've chosen to actively not like engage with, but I just can't it's a capacity issue because anger is very big.
And
You know what I mean?
it takes energy to be angry.
Yes, yes.
Totally.
And I've done it. That's how all my other grief processes went. Like, I did that. So I gave all I have to give to anger in grief, But it did make me feel like, is this another level of denial that I can't? But, the thing is I've been raised around addiction my whole life. And I went to those AA and NA meetings with my mother when I was little. I know who's responsible here. For me, I'm okay saying Jake knew the risks of buying pills. He knew the risk of the fact that they could be manufactured, and that in manufactured pills, there very well could be any number of substances that will kill you. He knew that. So for me, I'm really comfortable saying this was his responsibility. I'm not mad at him. I'm really not. Because he was a fucking 18-year-old kid who was going through a breakup and all kinds of stuff and didn't know how to experience feelings and was trying to feel euphoric and did something really stupid. And unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to like make it right, That doesn't make me mad. Other people are mad, and that's okay, but like my older son has gone through his little, like anger periods, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not mad. I'm just not, and I'm not mad at the person who sold it to him. I never have been. We knew from the jump where it came from, how he got it, all the things, and I was kind of content to just be like, I'll let that unfold however it unfolds. I'm not mad at them. The thing is about like the low level dealers are just selling to sustain their own habit. Like that, I know this guy didn't have any intent. So for me, I'm not mad, but like all of these parents were inundating, like adding me to groups and group
Mm,
messages. First of all, I hate a group
mm.
text. Always have hated a group chat my whole life. But then this was like they're all doing advocacy work at the Capitol. And I mean, I was 3 months in at that point, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do that. Like, I cannot handle this. And all of the people that I was finding online, very angry. And I was like, man,
Yeah.
I understand that, but this is very scary for me. Like I feel very unheld in this
Yeah.
environment. But
Yeah.
then I really thought like, is this another level of denial because anger is something that I just don't have of space for?
Well, and based on how you were describing that, I don't think it's that you don't have space for it. I think you have a different relationship with anger. Like for me, because my brother died by overdose, I grew up where anger was a sin. Anger was bad. I wasn't
Mm,
allowed. I was a bad person if I felt anger, and then it took me years to give myself permission to even just be angry at Garrett for making that choice to take it, even though he was fully aware of what he was doing. But it took me years and the right therapist to be able to work through and process that anger. And anger is not my first response. Like that's not my default emotion. So I think it's just different for different people. But again, like we don't talk about grief as a society enough. And so when you see other people with a similar type of loss reacting or responding in one way and mine looks different, am I doing this wrong? Of course we're
yes.
going to have those thoughts. Of course. When really it's
Yes.
like you're not doing it wrong, you're just doing grief for you.
Yes. Well, and I think that's why it's just unfortunate because until it doesn't, can I be honest? It doesn't seem to matter sometimes how much we say the shit. Unless you've gone through it, you don't fucking get it.
You don't
And so,
speak the
like, it
language.
doesn't seem to matter how much we're saying, please stop saying this to people who are grieving, or here's ways you can show up. You're still going to hear, well, some people don't want to talk about it, or I didn't want to make them think about it, if they weren't already, as if I'm not like, literally thinking about it the second I wake up. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's one thing I really tried to be open about, is like, just so you know, it never goes away. So I'm laughing, I'm smiling, I'm whatever, and it's like this grief is sitting right here going, do
Yeah.
you remember that Jake died? Like Jake's
Yeah.
dead. I mean, and it was a lot more prominent at those first few months than it is maybe now, but it's
Yeah.
still there. I'm still
Yeah.
thinking about it all day,
It's just
every
the
day.
volume's just a little lower than it used to be. It's
Yes.
not blasting in your ear like at a rock concert, but it's still there
Exactly.
because
It's still
grief
there.
doesn't go away. It just gets different, and we learn to carry it differently through different seasons and the acuity lessens, and we still we don't stop missing our person.
Yeah. Yeah. I have there was a couple of times in the beginning, the only thing I've ever really felt anger about is people's responses. And there was a couple times in the beginning that like I had formulated responses to other people, like where I was like, well, I guess if he was alive for almost 19 years, you have to give me that long to talk about it every day. You know what I mean? Like, whatever I was going to say about
Yes.
it. Like I'd sit around fighting with people, and I was like, Melissa, what are we doing? No, we don't need to fight with people in our heads. That's an old us behavior. So what do you need to tell somebody that they've hurt you? Because what are we doing here? But it was, I note people's discomfort now, but I don't allow it to alter too much. I mean, I'm a human, so like there
Sure.
is like you will recoil a little when you can see that you're not being received well. But like I try to just be me and let that be educational in itself. Like that it's not that scary to talk to somebody who has lost somebody that they love. We we do become a little bit weird. I'm not going to say that I haven't, but like I was like, my brother was over the other day, and we were laughing about our weird aunt, like after our dad died, just all the weird shit she would say. And I was like, damn, dude, I'm the weird aunt now. And my other son was like, yeah, mom's always like, oh, the blue jay came, that's Jake or whatever. And I was like, you shut your fucking mouth. Cause I do say that. But like our aunt would always be like, oh, those birds are your dad. But like, she really was weird. And I mean, I'm a little less weird than she was, but I was like, yeah, you do kind of come up with any sign that you want to be a sign is like, yeah, that's my sign. Like, do you not want the signs? What's up? And that's the thing that I find people really struggle to interact with is some of the weirdness, But yeah, I do feel better because I I think one of the things that really irritated my spirit in the beginning, specifically from the child loss community, was because I did continue my podcast. Like I it's been a very therapeutic space for me. So for me, I would just get on and cry to the internet. That's cool. I don't care. I did have to the capacity for dumb shit did that's why I do so many solo episodes now because if you come on and I had a few dudes who would like answer questions by holding their book into the camera and like or well if you want the answer to that sign up for my program kind of thing and I was like no I'm like I need these conversations that this is what gives me the energy to continue doing life like literally.
I know the only cup I'm holding up is my red because I chose it because I know you wear red glasses. So the only thing I'm going to show up is my cute coffee mug with my
Which
polar
I
bear that
love.
also has red glasses. Like
They're almost the exact same ones too.
I know.
Look
we
at
got twinsies happening.
I love it. But that was one way that my
having the
capacity
space.
really shifted
Yeah,
was for stuff
for
that
sure.
doesn't like I can't do anything that drains me even a little bit.
Yeah.
Like at all because I mean if it takes any energy it takes it all. I had to like quit on a couple of clients because they were ones that weren't being consistent and showing I noticed my nervous system responded very sharply very quickly to inconsistency because PTSD is very real like that's been a real struggle is the like panic that can happen with certain things. Like we got a puppy right after he died and the fear this dog brought into my life because she was this tiny when we got her. There was a lot of happenstance that happened. Well, that's why we have her. We didn't need her, but damn it, we love her. I had a couple of almost full-blown panic attacks over this dog because I was like so afraid she was going to die. And not for good reason. Like this was literally my brain just formulating shit to be afraid of.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, it was wild. So I got very clear about what gives me energy and what takes away my energy. And that's what I've really stuck with. The podcast does light me up. It really does give me all the energy in the world. Like I can be having a rough morning and then get on and have a conversation like this and it carries me through the whole day. A really good therapy session with, me being a good therapist and seeing, good progress. That like those are things that really do sustain me. So I could feel some grief moms, specifically moms, I'm not going to use the word judging, but definitely curious about the fact that I was able to continue doing the podcast and, just cry on the internet if that's what I felt like I needed to do. And it did start to make me question things, but there was also this really irritating assumption, I guess I'll say, that like I'm in this stage right now, but like when it all hits later, and I'm like, why would you ever try to tell somebody that's going to get worse? Like, why? Well, just wait. Just wait. And I'm like, what? That's worse than it gets better. Like,
Yeah.
what? That was the only thing that I was like, yeah,
That sucks.
child loss maybe just isn't my space right now.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's, you get to make that choice. And again, everyone's loss is different. And so there's going to be different cycles that we go through. There's no linear stages here. And we all experience the different emotions in different ways, in different intensities. And because we're unique, each person's unique, and not in like a, you know, special snowflake kind of way, but just like we are all unique in how we handle, process, internalize, metabolize emotions. It's going to look different,
Well,
and
and I
especially
think
grief.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that really highlights kind of what we started this conversation with, which is what was already there when you
Yeah.
lost your person. Like, that's really the things that I'm understanding deeper about myself is what was already there. I
Yeah.
came into this loss with a lifetime of attachment issues and, all kinds of other stuff. And that's the stuff I'm going to be cycling through. How I've always responded is going to look different than how other people have always responded. And that's why I think it's so important for people to just in general deal with their shit, like become more emotionally available in general, because maybe you don't understand grief, but I have friends who know how to sit and hold whatever I'm carrying and giving them in that moment, whether they have ever experienced a loss or not. They can sit there and not try to rescue, versus people who have experienced loss and consider themselves very spiritual and enlightened and whatever, still jumping to rescue. Every single time I bring something up, it's like and flowery words. Flowery words. I'm like, I know what this is, so I'm not going to let it bother me. But like, I just clocked that you were uncomfortable with my grief and tried to rescue me.
Yes. Yes. My grief was too much for you. Thank you for communicating that so clearly.
Yes. Yes. The flowery words almost
I
make
hate the
me.
flowery words. I hate them so much. Sorry.
And listen, me too, but I think I feel so shitty about it because I think I used to be a flowery words kind of person. I'm not sure, but I feel like I might have been. And now I'm like, okay, it's bizarre to receive a text out of the blue of flowery words, and I'm like, you didn't want a response because you didn't ask me anything. You gave me a lot of, I've been thinking about you and here's all the flowery words and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, heart, I guess. Like, I see your
But
intent.
I also think that's an appropriate response. Like when we're grieving, at least for me, I don't have the mental capacity to text it back out. I'll either voice memo you or I'm just going to give it a heart. Because I just don't have the capacity otherwise. Like, and I think that gets to be okay too. Like having expectations
Yes.
of grievers is unfair in how
Yeah.
much we don't owe a response. We don't owe depth or insight into our process. Like you maybe have capacity to do it for one or two of your closest friends, but other than that, like it's not just something that's easily like, well, just copy and paste this response and spread it,
Yeah. Again, that's been such a challenge for me, is accepting that this is my new capacity, that
Yeah.
I am no longer a communicator the way I once was. I cannot respond. I just can't.
And
There's
that's a
so much
secondary
to that.
loss from this. That's a secondary loss, like understanding that I have a different capacity that I have to operate at. Like maybe I was always someone who could give 110%, and now 70% is my 100%. And I
Yes.
run out of steam by the end of the day. And that's, again, not a failing. I am trying to integrate grief and this process into how I exist now.
Do you think it ever changes?
Yes, I think one of my favorite visuals someone ever gave is, like old school VHS tapes, you'd have them at work and there's the little like thing like that pings into the corner. There's like an Office
Mhm.
episode where they're like waiting for it to hit the corner perfectly. I love that stuff. So that TV is like your body, and your grief is what's floating around, and it's going to hit your boundaries sometimes. But as time goes on, it's almost like there's more time between when it hits the wall corners and reminds you that it's still there. So I think we grow around that grief. That grief stays within us. It doesn't go away, but I think we keep growing around it and making more room the more life that we do. But every now and then it hits one of those walls. And it's like, that's those grief bursts that show up unexpectedly or around holidays or anniversaries or birthdays. And then it's like, it brings it back full up again. It's hit that wall or maybe like hit a corner back to back really close. But yeah, but it's still floating within us.
And I think I was so understanding of that in an emotional sense, but not in
the
symptoms.
Physical.
Yes. For instance, I've been much more tired than because that was a huge thing. I was so tired, whatever. And then I started to feel better, but I was off the last few days. And I think it really was another first holiday without him.
Yep.
And yesterday when I woke up a little better, I was like, I really think that's what that was. And I have to remember, even years from now, those physical symptoms can show up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder because that is not something that I have thought about.
Yeah. I talk about that with my clients often. We create coping ahead and aftercare plans around certain times of year where it's like, maybe I need to see less clients or work half days or work from home. Maybe I don't plan as many social things in the days leading up and the day after. And I intentionally buffer seasonal days that I know are harder for me. And then because you have less capacity because grief impacts us physically and emotionally.
Yes. It's not like I didn't know that, but I didn't know that it would happen, come back. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Oh, yeah.
I just didn't know that. Again, I was blind to all of the grief that I experienced before. I really white-knuckled for a lot of years, which is why I hit burnout at 43. You know what I mean? I was white-knuckling my whole life. So now it's like, oh my gosh, this is really crazy to feel that level of fatigue, that lowered amount of capacity, all of the physical stuff. It has been wild for me. But it's also been nice because I recognize it and I get to teach my kids about it too. Okay, that's normal. That's okay. That's okay that's how you're feeling. So, okay, I'm so happy that we talked about that because I do want to be prepared that I'm not just going to be crying more sometimes. I'm going to feel more tired, more agitated, more everything sometimes.
More harder time focusing, the cognitive impacts too.
Yes. Okay. I'm so glad we talked about that. Well, thank you so much. Come back anytime you want. I love getting to talk to you. So there's that. But tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Dr. Heather Taylor. I'm on Substack, How We Stay with Grief, and my podcast, Grief is the New Normal. I also have a new fun side project I'm starting called Grief Between the Pages, where we're reading romantasy fantasy books through the lens of grief. So, because I'm an avid reader, that's my favorite coping strategy is getting lost in another world. And there's tons of grief in the stories that everyone's obsessed with on Book Talk. So let's talk about the grief in them. So, and then hello at Grief is the New Normal is my email if you ever want to reach out. And I am seeing new clients. I'm SciPac, so I can see clients virtually in any of the 43 states that are part of SciPac, but I'm based in Washington State. Yeah.
Right on. And also, before I forget, so all of that will be in the show notes, but I will link the last episode that I had with you for people to hear that too.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have made my day.
Oh, I'm so glad. It was lovely to catch up with you and thank you for sharing about your process with Jake.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to press stop. Hang out for 1 sec.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.
Emotionally unavailable.
All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.